gotta clean up everything under here. Then I'm going to put some undercoating on, some black paint, fluid film, make sure it doesn't rust out anywhere. That's still really solid. I mean, look at the pinch weld. It's pretty good. So get that cleaned up. I've got my compression things on this side if my camera will focus. And I've got the same thing going on over there with the same brake fitting, same setup, same location and angle. That way it's safe. I made sure that it was clean for where I put this on. Everything's bled. I've got awesome rear brakes now. I can't spin them with wheel on. I took it back off so I can actually get this side actually welded on with the piece from the junkyard. Why is my camera doing that? With the piece from the junkyard e-brake system, I'll weld that on, get my gear put back together, that up, and the e-brake will work. Then that side can go on. I wanted to double check the same thing over here, where I'm not having any actual leaks going on with my master cylinder I swapped on from the other side of the car where it was exposed because, you know, the wheel fell off. But the wheel cylinder was good, so I put that on since the other one was actually bad, and it, why is my camera refusing to focus? It twisted off the bleeder. Well, someone had been trying to do something and they twisted off the bleeder, and this wasn't actually wanting to move at all. So, going from that, rear of the car is pretty close to being safe. The front, I'm fighting with a few issues of vacuum leaks. The car was hit at some point and stitched in around here, and somewhere around here is where they blended it. I haven't found exactly where yet, but I know they stitched it in right around there, if we can zoom in on that. It didn't get structural to where the actual lower control arm mounts to. It was clipped, or it got clipped in the same way that my red Festiva was smashed above anything structural. It's interesting history that I didn't really know how to bring up earlier, of just basically cars had a rough life. So I cleaned up the headlights some, got my amber lights in, everything's working so far. I do have an issue with my brake master cylinder. It's got a vacuum leak. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to replace that, since I was able to basically block off my vacuum to create my, well, brake booster. But it's running really good now. I've got a pretty bad leak around the valve cover I gotta fix. I got rid of the slack in the throttle, so it's not a dead pedal anymore. I cleaned my little check valve here, so I'm not having as bad of an idle anymore. And cleaned the distributor, re-gapped the spark plugs. Someone put them in and never checked the gap on them, so I had everything from like 57 thousandths to like 32 thousandths. Wasn't great for the engine running, but now you hear it. It's doing better. Cleaned the air filter. It was actually okay. And the oil is actually brand new from that. So, oil change happened right before the car sat forever. So, oh, one thing, I've got the clips I need to put in here. They've just got bale wire and stuff holding this grill not in the correct location. I'm gonna get that fixed, that way it pulls the gap in correctly. But it's getting there. This is just a few hours of goofing around, killing time with the car. And I will get a prop rod or a hood strut, like my Festiva, that can bolt onto this. That way that piece of angle iron can go away. So, pretty good day for first day of just working on the car. I gotta go to the junkyard, grab that amber light, paint those still, and cosmetic stuff. So, yeah, not a whole lot going on. There is one thing I need to point out. The guy put 2 gallons of fresh fuel in, but he did not drain the fuel that sat in the car for 3 years. So I dumped like my other half bottle of heat into the gas tank, and hopefully that'll help get rid of the water that decided to be friends with gasoline and make it run rough. So it's starting to run better. See you guys in the next bit. Okay, figured it would be a easy visual to show. So here's our door jamb, seal, and all that stuff, and all the filth. This is a little detail I do on a car, no matter how old it is, that nobody ever seems to do, is just clean the door jambs and little details like that. And here's the side I've been working on for like 14 minutes or so. Makes a difference now, doesn't it? So, In summary, like, I ended up selling that grill over there for a Festiva I picked up at the junkyard a while ago, and for the same price that I sold that for, I got my brake vacuum booster that I need to replace because that's causing the vacuum leak in the engine, making it idle rough when I use the brake. And I'm trying to think of it, the marker lights I need for the front end. So far, keeping the budget pretty low, and I've got everything major that this car needs so far. Then it'll just be trips to the junkyard to get stuff like that little trim piece and other stuff that this thing desperately needs. All right. One thing led to another, and yeah, I had to take a headlight out because I was missing my one lower or low beam light, or I'm not quite sure what it was, but it goes in the lower corner of this. It was missing, and my horn doesn't work, and the horn's located behind the car, or the headlight assembly here. Plus, on both sides of this car, I've had this happen on a bunch of Festivas. Ignore the different color, we'll talk about that later. That it's like they always get pulled in over time, and it makes it where you have a hard time getting your grill and your headlights to even sit correctly and adjust them correctly in the car. So I have to basically pull the whole front end off and grab here and always yank them out about a quarter of an inch. Then it actually follows the correct body line of the front bumper, and I actually can get my grill to fit in correctly. So with that said, I basically got to goof around, see what's going on with my horn and get it to work, and basically pull this out just a little bit. I might even fix a little break in the weld and get things working. Anyhow, it's getting late. Gonna keep goofing around out here. Ran out of the clips to hold the actual grill piece in, but I figure I did a better job than they use, like a coat hanger and I think some little like toy RC like wire to hold the grill in, and it left it like an inch outside of where it was supposed to go. So filled around with that, pulled out the lower corners of our headlight, got everything to line up pretty good. Used 2 zip ties, one there. Got all my mounts to actually line up where they needed to be since they weren't. Had to bend that stuff around. So got all this lined up. Messed with the fender a bit. It's actually lining up with the angle, and the gap is uniform on this now, so that's good. Over there is kind of what we're getting into. So the car got hit similar to how my red Festiva was, and it shoved everything above the actual frame up. And I can see that, well, you can see from the color, they basically clipped it from another junkyard car and replaced this damage. Everything's square. I knew it when I was getting the car. Going from that, I'm fighting with the gap issue over here where the fender is too far forward because they didn't properly align the fender when they were putting the car together. And I say that because my fender is pretty uniform with the hood. However, my fender isn't actually pulled out as much as it needs to. So, how do I say this? The fender needs to be pulled out like this. That will create the fender to be pulled back while pulling it out and falling in line with the bumper, because there are 2 bolts way down inside of here. So one there and one in front of it that will be, well, you can see the bolt still in it right there, that need to be, well, long story short, they were shoved all the way forward and they're slotted like mount from factory, or from however someone put this car together last. So by pulling this fender towards us, like here, like so, you see the gap is created like the other side. Well, once I do that and actually get my both the bolts close to being set in where they need to, it's going to hold the fender out and create the gap while keeping this, how I say, uniform flush with it and having the gap. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just dumb bodywork stuff that happens over time, and here we are trying to fix it. Anyhow, I'm gonna get off here and go around with more of this stuff. Check out the progress on the Aspire. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, so I've got everything fixed under here, so the byline actually follows the car the way it should. I checked online, so supposedly these aren't supposed to have much of a gap, if any at all. I'm not going to fix that little dent there, but everything's lining up the way it should now, following the curve of the bumper. The grill is still where it needs to be. That is pretty much where it needs to be. I smacked the fender over a bit, messed with how the hood's fitting a ton. Swapped in these Capri little like bumper or hood snubbers to adjust how high the hood is. I cut and slotted this actual bracket because it was what was holding the rest of my adjustment from where I needed it to be. Got that to bring up probably 3/4 of an inch. And I haven't done much else other than they put the battery terminal on upside down, because like most people won't notice this. Battery terminals are tapered in at the top, and this guy decided to put it in upside down. So I'm gonna fix that, clean up the terminal, flip it over, and get that to fit correctly. So let me try and get the hood shut for you guys, see how it's fitting now. Not bad for a late night's work. I struck gold at the other place. It's a clear marker light for the side I need. Plus it's actually got some of the interior parts I've actually been looking for, so that's a plus. Might even find some cool wheels out here for the car. Installed! Okay, I'm a bit tired. I stay up too late fixing everything. I changed out the bolt and hammered this out and flipped it the correct way since I had the terminal on upside down. So got that all fitting nice over there. So let me get the hood prop done. Oh yeah, I found this cover in the junkyard and cleaned it up. So now I actually have my little fuse cover for everything. Alright, see how all this fits. For an Aspire, it's better than I've seen at the junkyard, so that's something. This side sucked quite a lot, and now it's passable. So I already pulled off the windshield trim to paint it. I've let PB Blaster soak into the studs for the windshield wipers because I'd like to pull them off and paint them yet. And I found the wrong color little trim piece for the e-brake cable. So I'll either paint that black or I'll just find another one at the junkyard that's the correct color. And check it out. My cigar lighter ashtray. I found one in the junkyard and I'll clean that up and all that works. Plus, like my dad came over and while I was trying to sleep, got the horn to work. So that's cool. It beeps again. Okay, I'm gonna try and head into town in a little bit with this thing. Later. While I was under the car finishing up a few welds I needed to make on the rear trailing arm beam, I wanted to swap out this red reflector since the front is already faded clear for a pair of clear ones. Now you can't find rear just reflective lenses that are clear on these cars, so I just I grabbed the spare set from that junkyard car, and if you notice, basically the only difference is you've got a mount for your actual light bulb for the front end, but the prongs and the holes are identical. So, and then I'm just gonna put screws in and you get the idea. It's an easy little swap. That's all. Check out the perilous balancing act I've done with my wiper arm and paint. So, picked up some of this stuff. It's working really good with laying out, and it's a little bit cheaper than the actual high temp paint from the same brand. So that's my second wiper arm I've done. Honestly, it's turning out a lot better than the first one, but I've been learning because I haven't actually used that kind of paint for trim before, and from a glance, it's looking a lot better than it used to. Cleaned out the clips, cleaned out basically the trim. Okay, really cold out. It's like 28 degrees. Got that removed in like 12 minutes or so. All the bolts and all that cool stuff. Got the roller rockers off this thing. Now I can actually clean up tonight after I pick up some paint.